Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Yes, so I apologize. I did 2 uploads yesterday. I just feel like the second video I just really needed to get off my chest and put that out there because it is still frustrating, but I also wanted to kind of take a little bit of a break. Lots of things have been going on. And so now I'm back. So it's only literally a half a day that I took off, but that's okay. Yeah, just some stuff's been going on, and nothing too severe, just, life. And I was cleaning earlier today, so, and school, but that's that's exciting. So you can tell I'm a little bit out of it. I'm just in a little bit of pain today, and it's nothing like something happened. It's just that with the changing weather, God, I sound old. Old injuries tend to come back and just remind me of that they were there. So I'm, just dealing with a little bit of rib pain for I guess they never did heal right from everything that I went through. Plus last year, no, 2 years ago, no, last year, I cracked 3 ribs at my other job, and that was exciting, and didn't get any time off, and eventually ammonia set in, and that was a whole other thing. But yeah, it was not that much fun, but I'm here. But one thing is, my shoulder. And that's a whole story behind it. And it's just frustrating because it never healed right. So what happened with that story is back in high school, good old times. So I did not come when I was summoned by the group of 6, and because my ex really wanted to talk to me, and I didn't go to him. And then on my lunch break, there was a park that wasn't too far from the school, but it was a little bit of a walk. It's like 10 minutes away. Not that bad. So, you had to make sure you got back in time, and next to the park was a lake. And my ex, when he wasn't dating somebody at the time, tend to stalk me there and follow me around at a distance, and he would creepily watch from because there was these portable, not portable, but they were small buildings for washrooms, so boys and girls, and it was a small building, and he would literally stand behind there and just watch me either swing or talk to people, and that used to piss him off. And so I didn't know this at the time that this happened. I found it after the event, but what happened was he went to some people that God, this sounds like such whatever. Anyway, so he went to these people who I guess owed him a favor, that did something for him and whatnot, and he told them to basically send me a message, to not make it that it was a message, but it wasn't a message from him per se, if that makes sense. He wanted to send me a message, and obviously I'm not stupid. I know that it would have come from at least one of them. And anyways, so at the end of the day, I was at my locker, and I grabbed my bags, and I was closing up my locker, and I turned, and these guys ran through the hallway and slammed me into the lockers, and my shoulder went first, then my head. Um, and at first I didn't realize what happened. I was like, okay, ow, like that hurt, and like they were laughing and stuff, and like one of them looked back at me. It was very strange because like literally one of them looked back at me and then kept on running. So I was like, okay, that's weird. So I put my backpack on my shoulder because I was like, okay, whatever. And then all of a sudden, like the bag dropped. Like I don't even know what happened. Like excruciating pain. Like I was in so much pain that the tears just came. And one of the six was standing in the hallway watching and smiling and laughing. And then he's like, oh, what's the problem? Blah, blah, blah. And I just said, I need to go to the office. Like, get the fuck out of my way. I need to go to the office. And like he was like following me there. It was very strange. Like he was trying to be like, it was kind of creepy because he was trying to be like all really nice and sincere and like worried. And then he even like opened up the door for me, and then he like whispered that basically he'll let his brother know that the message was received and that I was okay-ish. And like he gave me a kiss on the cheek, which is weird. And then I went into the office, and of course the secretaries were like, they rolled their eyes like, what, like what now? And I said, something's wrong, like my shoulder, like look at the tapes, and like you'll see like something happened, like this is bad. And so like they rolled their eyes, and they had like one of the gym teachers come in, and they're, I guess, medically trained and whatnot, and she like went to touch it, and she's like, and I like almost screamed in pain. She's like, no, this is bad, like she needs to go to the hospital now, this is not bullshit, she needs to go. So they like taped up my arm, my shoulder, and put ice packs on it, made sure that I couldn't move it. And then they're like, well, you have to call your mom. So I called my mom, and I couldn't get in touch with her the first time because she's not the best when it comes to cell phones, but that's okay, I still love her. And then the second time she picked up, and she was driving to work at the time because she had a part-time job at the time. And I said, Mom, I'm going to the hospital. Like, I know that you're going to work, so like I can call an ambulance, that's fine, but I need to go to the hospital. There was like an accident. She's like, no, I'll call my boss, let her know, and I'll come to the school. Like, I'm 10 minutes away. And I said, okay, sure. And then, like, I hung up and stuff. And then, like, the secretary's like, well, that's a good thing that she's coming because, like, we wouldn't have gotten you an ambulance. So that's the thing. So anyways, I sit down, and then my mom comes in about 10 minutes later, and like she could see like I was bandaged up, and like she was in tears, and she's like, what happened? I'm like, it was an accident, some boys were running in the hall and they slammed me into the locker. So she helped me up and she got me to the car, and like she was really pissed, like the school wasn't like really doing anything, but anyways, that's besides the point. And I had an event to go to that night that I was helping with the school. Like, I was in the theater and stuff, but I couldn't go. And nobody I reached out to would tell the teacher that, like, I wasn't available. And, like, none of the teachers really wanted to not say anything because they didn't think it was that bad. So, and I remember getting texts from my ex, too, and was saying, like, oh my gosh, like, what's going on? Trying to be like all concerned and caring. And I think the whole thing was not that he was trying to send a message, but I think that he was trying to play that knight in shining armor, right? That he had somebody injured me, and then he would come in and swoop in and be the knight and take everything, right? So he put on this fake persona that he was like caring and sweet. And maybe this wasn't like a persona, maybe this was like really what he wanted and what he was feeling, but like I wasn't falling for it. So, right? Like, it just, like, now looking back at it, it really seems like that was the whole thing, that he wanted me to be hurt and then him to swoop in and be the knight in shining armor that he wanted to be. Anyway, so my mom takes me to the hospital. I get signed in and stuff, and um I get my temperature taken, incident report filled out, like, on what happened, and, like, we had to wait around for a bit, and, like, I was, like, coming out of shock, so I was in a lot of pain, and, like, so they gave me something for the pain, and I was sitting there, and then, like, eventually we got moved to x-rays, and then we had to wait. So long story short, I did not have a dislocated shoulder, thank God. Actually, they said that it would have been a lot better if I did. The whole thing is, like, the main bone, the bone that's in the socket. So there's, like, a sac around that bone, and then there's the socket. So the kind of, like, pocket of, like, I guess, protection before the socket was, like, damaged. It was, like, non-existent, and, like, 'cause it got ripped apart, and then, like, there was, like, tissue damage within the socket. So my arm was put in a sling for 8 weeks, 6 weeks, something like 6 to 8 weeks, and, like, I was in a lot of pain. Like, this was excruciating. And so I had to go to therapy, which was physio, which was not a good thing, because they said, like, it could be like, really severe if left unattended. Fantastic. So, like, I remember going home with my mom, and mom's, like, kind of stressing out. And then, like, I remember my dad, because it was a few hours by then. I remember my dad got home. And, like, he was like, what happened? So I explained the situation, and, like, he was pissed. He's like, well, what did the school do for it? I'm like, not really, nothing. They were actually kind of pissed that I got hurt. Like, I asked for this. I'm like, yes, because and my mom gave me some pain pills, and, like, I was high as a fucking kite. And I was like, yes, because I asked for this, like, blah blah blah, that's what they think. And, like, I was, like, rambling as shit. Like, I was just in a lot of pain. And then, like, I remember, I think my mom called my brother and said, like, yeah, your sister was in the hospital, come home, like, after your studies, or after work or whatever. So he came home too, and it was, it was a whole thing. But anyways, so I remember the next day, so I couldn't, so the shitty part was, my shoulder that got damaged was my dominant arm. So I'm right-handed, so my right shoulder got fucked. So I could not write, because literally I could not, so my arm was like this. Oh God, Jesus Christ. It was, like, in a sling, and I could literally not, thank you so much, doll. I could not move it, like, it was bad. Like, I could not, creepy doll. Sorry about that. And you see it swinging back and forth. Oh my God. Okay, that's kind of about it. So, like, I couldn't, like, move it. So, like, I had no mobility. Like, I had to learn how to get that mobility back. So, my parents got me, like, this roll bag, so, like, I didn't have to put it on my shoulder. Like, it was a roll backpack. So, like, I rolled that thing into the school the next day. And before I went to the office, I went to the teacher's classroom that I was supposed to help out with this function and whatnot. And I knocked on the door, and, like, he answered, and he, like, looked at me in shock. He's like, yeah, I heard something went wrong. And I'm like, yeah, it was a whole thing, got injured, but I'm like, I'll be there tonight. And, like, so I was like, oh, I'll figure it out, like, whatever, this isn't a whole thing. And then I went to the office, and, like, I had to hand them documentation basically saying that this wasn't bullshit. So, like, I had to do that because they literally thought it was bullshit. I don't know, that teacher said, like, no, this is severe. So, like, I had to give them documentation to prove. And then I got called into the VP. And, so he sat down and God, this is gonna make me sound so terrible as a human being, and I don't want to do this because this isn't. They made me. No, man. Okay, you'll understand in a second. So I get called into the VP, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna pull up the thing to show you like what happened." So he showed me. Man, did I like hit that locker hard? And so he showed me that, and then he showed me. He's like, "Well, you put your backpack on your shoulder." I'm like, "Yeah," because I didn't know it was this severe. Like I had no idea what the hell was going on. Like I thought it was nothing. Like it was like the initial shock, and then after, owie, like right, and then so this was still when I had the zero contact order with the group of six, basically. Like it was with my ex, but it kind of titled all of them because they were always together. So he's like, "Well, why was why was so and so in the hall?" I'm like, do I look like a rocket science? Like I don't know. I'm not a mind reader. So then he pulled up the surveillance and he's like, oh, and I'm like, what? He's like, "Well, can you pick out the faces?" I'm like, I only know, like, it was literally a blur. I know one of them for sure because he turned around and looked at me. And so he's like, "Oh, well, do you know his name?" And I said, "Unfortunately, no." And then he's like, "Well, do you know his background?" And I said, um, "Well, what?" He's like, "Well, do you know his appearance?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, I do." And he's like, "Oh, okay, well," and I'm like, "Well," I don't want to sound rude or anything. I'm like, I do know that he was colored. Um, so he looked into it. He's like, "Yeah, I guess they all do look colored. Are you trying to be racist?" I'm like, "No, I'm not trying to be racist. I this is like I don't normally sit there and stare at people and you know like I don't normally go out and pinpoint like, "Oh yeah, you're so and so and da 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 and this is your background." Like I'm not that type of person. I do not give two hoots. If you're a good person, solid. Like and so like I was freaking out because he made me sound like a complete racist. And I'm like, I'm not trying to be like I'm not. And he's like, "Well, in these things, like in the I guess video, whatever." He's like, "I can pick out 3 people." He's like, "But unfortunately, we can't do anything about this." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, why not?" He's like, um, he's just like, "Well, we don't really have good evidence." I'm like, "You have evidence that they slammed me into the locker?" I'm like, "It could have been an accident. Like, I don't know. At this time, I didn't." You understand in a second. I'm like, "I don't know. It could have been an accident. Like, I don't know. Talk to them. I don't give a shit." Like, I didn't say I didn't give a shit, but I was thinking that. I'm like, just like, I don't know. Just say like, be careful in the hallways. Like, just let them know. Like, let them beware. Like, they actually hurt somebody. So this is why we don't like do dumb shit in the hallway. Like, I didn't say dumb shit, but I was like, dumb stuff in the hallway. And then he's just like, "Well, you're coming off very racist." I'm like, this has nothing to do with race. Like, this is just me saying, don't be dumb in the hallway. Like, so this went on for a good, like, 30 minutes. And so I was like, "You know what? Like, I'm just gonna drop it. Like, I'm done." And then he's just like, "Well," and then he's going through, like, the documentation, and he's like, "Oh, so your dominant arm was injured." I was like, "Yep." He's like, "Well, okay, so if you have a test to be written, a teacher will come in and help you." And then before, like, okay. Okay, if you have a test, a teacher will come in and help you write. But if you're just in a regular class, then somebody will just have to take notes for you. Thank you so much. And I left. Yeah, no one really helped me take notes. There was like one or two people that kind of helped, not really. Um, and definitely my ex helped me in the classes, one or two classes that I had with him at the time. Definitely helped me, and he was the only one that volunteered to help me, so the teacher was like, yeah, okay, you can help. But I'm like, hello, there's a no contact order, like we're not even supposed to be in the same class. And the teacher's like, oh well, this one time it's fine, like he's helping you, he's trying to be nice, like just, I'm like, you fucking document this, like little, like I made sure the teachers documented this and have proof that they okayed this. That's how, like, I did not want this to fall back on me. So I was like, make sure there's documentation. So I literally had them write the documentation saying that they were okay with this. And of course, it would be under supervision or whatever. And then I had them, like, hand it into the office. Because that is how, like, I didn't want this to fall back on me. Even though I didn't want this, I'm like, I'd rather take my own notes. And then somehow I ended up acting, like, seeming like an asshole, so it was weird. Exhausting. Anyways, so a week went by, and then this guy came up to me, and I recognized him. I was like, your face seems familiar. He's like, yeah, I was the one in the hall after your accident. And I said, oh. And that's when he explained that my ex approached them, and so on and so forth, and it snowballed. And I'm like, no, that makes sense. That makes fucking sense. Like, the world, everything just makes sense, you know. Of course, it comes full circle and stuff. And again, it honestly, looking back, it makes sense because, like, yeah, he wanted me to be injured. He wanted to be swooped in as the knight in shining armor and help me with my notes in class and stuff, and act like the caring person, and try to come off, like, not as an asshole that, like, you know, we've turned a corner. It was just bullshit, like, you know. And like, so yeah, anyways, that is my long story of, like, how my shoulder got fucked up. It never healed properly, like, at all. It's not what it used to be, and it never will be. But, you know, there was an option of surgery, but I was like, you know what, like, I have full range of motion, you know, it's just not what it used to be. And as long as I can write, I'm a happy panda, like, you know, like, so, yeah, I thought that would be a good segue into, you know, the bullshit story of my shoulder. Anyways, guys, thank you for hanging out with me and my craziness at the beginning of the video and then the long ass story. But anyways, yeah, so that is my story of how one of my injuries happened at school and how it was handled. That was exciting. But anyways, guys, I'll end this video here. Remember, never give up, always keep fighting, you're enough, and you're very much loved. Until the next video, I love you guys.